Ladies, let me tell you something. Who you entertain, who you allow access to your spirit will determine the strength of your journey. Some men come into your life like a storm, looking like a blessing, but leaving behind a wreckage of broken pieces. Today, I need you to hear me, not just with your ears, but with your spirit. There are 7 dangerous men you must avoid if you want to walk in the fullness of your calling. A man who speaks with eloquence but lacks follow-through is a danger to your destiny. He knows how to craft words that sound like a future, but in reality, his words are empty echoes that never take form. At first, his promises will make you feel seen, valued, and desired. He will tell you everything you long to hear. How he sees the future with you, how you are different, how he wants to grow and build. But over time, you will notice a pattern. His words remain the same, yet his actions never catch up. He will promise commitment but remain inconsistent. He will speak about marriage but refuse to take steps toward it. He will say he wants to lead but he never seeks wisdom. He will tell you he loves you but his love will never cost him anything. Never sacrifice, never accountability, never growth. This kind of man is dangerous because he gives just enough to keep you hoping, to keep you believing that one day he will become what he claims to be. But see, love without action is deception. A man who truly values you will not only speak of his intentions, he will align his life with them. He will not just talk about growth, he will grow. He will not just tell you he loves you, he will show you. When a man loves with action, his consistency speaks louder than his lips ever could. His effort becomes his testimony, and his reliability becomes his foundation. The danger of an empty-worded man is that he keeps you emotionally invested in a false future. You will find yourself excusing his inaction, justifying his delays, convincing yourself that his words are enough because you want to believe in what he says. But what he says and what he does are not the same thing. And in the process, you will waste time, energy, and pieces of your heart on someone who is only building castles in the air. A man who lacks integrity in his words will lack integrity in his love. If he cannot be trusted to follow through on his promises, he cannot be trusted to protect your heart. Love requires more than feelings. It requires effort, responsibility, and action. You deserve more than someone who sounds good. You deserve someone who is good. A man who values you will move with intention, not excuses. His love will be seen in what he builds, not just in what he says. God did not create you to be led by empty words. He created you to walk in wisdom, to discern what is real from what is simply convenient. When a man's actions and words do not align, believe his actions. A man who loves you with truth will not make you question his commitment. He will not need to convince you with words because his consistency will be proof enough. Sis, don't settle for pretty lies when God has real love waiting for you. A man without vision is a man without direction. And a man without direction is dangerous to any woman who desires growth, purpose, and stability. He moves through life reacting instead of leading, floating instead of building. He speaks of dreams but takes no steps toward them. He has ideas but no discipline. He talks about what he wants to become but never puts in the effort to get there. He may have ambition in his words, but his actions remain stagnant. He may say he wants success, but he makes no sacrifices to achieve it. When a man lacks vision, he becomes a liability to anyone attached to him. A woman who walks with purpose cannot afford to be tethered to a man who is comfortable in complacency. A man who has no plan for his own life cannot be trusted to contribute to yours. He will slow you down, drain your energy, and distract you from the calling on your life. He will keep you waiting for change that will never come, hoping for movement that he refuses to initiate. You will find yourself pushing him toward a future he should be chasing on his own. A man without vision often survives on potential. He convinces you to see him for who he could be instead of who he actually is. He may be charming, he may have talents, and he may even have gifts that impress you. But potential without discipline is just an illusion. It does not matter what he could be if he refuses to put in the work. A man who has no personal vision will always require a woman to carry the weight of his future. He will depend on you for direction, expect you to be his motivation, and leave you exhausted from carrying a load that was never meant to be yours. A real leader does not need to be constantly pushed. A man with vision does not need to be convinced to pursue it. His actions will reveal his commitment. He will not just talk about what he wants to do, he will take steps toward it. His life will be marked by progress, discipline, and consistency. His words will align with his efforts. He will not need to be begged to take responsibility because he understands that leadership is not just about position, but about preparation. A woman who walks with God cannot afford to build with a man who refuses to build himself. You were created for more than being someone's crutch, someone's motivation, or someone's excuse for never stepping into their full potential. A man who cannot lead himself cannot lead a household. A man who lacks direction will only slow down your journey. His indecision will become your burden. His procrastination will become your frustration. And his lack of preparation will affect your future. If a man does not know where he is going, he cannot take you anywhere worth following. A man without vision is a man without direction, and a man without direction is dangerous to any woman who desires growth, purpose, and stability. He moves through life reacting instead of leading, floating instead of building. He speaks of dreams but takes no steps toward them. He has ideas but no discipline. He talks about what he wants to become but never puts in the effort to get there. He may have ambition in his words, but his actions remain stagnant. He may say he wants success, but he makes no sacrifices to achieve it. When a man lacks vision, he becomes a liability to anyone attached to him. A woman who walks with purpose cannot afford to be tethered to a man who is comfortable in complacency. A man who has no plan for his own life cannot be trusted to contribute to yours. He will slow you down, drain your energy, and distract you from the calling on your life. He will keep you waiting for change that will never come, hoping for movement that he refuses to initiate. You will find yourself pushing him toward a future he should be chasing on his own. A man without vision often survives on potential. He convinces you to see him for who he could be instead of who he actually is. He may be charming, he may have talents, and he may even have gifts that impress you, but potential without discipline is just an illusion. It does not matter what he could be if he refuses to put in the work. A man who has no personal vision will always require a woman to carry the weight of his future. He will depend on you for direction, expect you to be his motivation, and leave you exhausted from carrying a load that was never meant to be yours. This kind of man will always have an excuse. He will tell you that life has been unfair to him. He will talk about his past struggles, his childhood wounds, or the lack of opportunities that have held him back. He will make you feel like it is your job to be patient with him, to encourage him, to wait for him to become what he should already be working toward. He will use your kindness as a crutch, keeping you emotionally invested in a journey he has no real intention of starting. He will borrow your faith to make up for his lack of effort, leaning on your belief in him while refusing to step into the responsibility of growth. A man without vision is not just stagnant. He is dangerous to the woman who aligns herself with him. When a man does not know where he is going, he will unintentionally lead you into circles. His inconsistency will become your frustration. His indecision will become your burden. His lack of preparation will affect your future. Instead of being a partner who builds with you, he will become an obstacle that slows you down. His presence will create more confusion than clarity, more delay than progress. A real man of vision does not have to be convinced to lead. He does not wait for someone else to push him into purpose. He takes responsibility for his own life, his own growth, and his own direction. His words match his actions. His effort speaks for itself. A man with vision does not need to be begged to take initiative. He does it because he understands that purpose is not something you wait for, but something you walk in daily. He is intentional about his time, his choices, and his commitments. He does not waste energy on distractions or meaningless pursuits, because he knows that his future requires focus. A woman who walks with God cannot afford to be led by a man who refuses to lead himself. You were created for more than being someone's emotional support system, someone's motivation, or someone's excuse for never stepping into their full potential. You cannot build a future with a man who is satisfied with standing still. You cannot create a strong foundation with someone who is unstable in their direction. If a man does not know where he's going, he cannot take you anywhere worth following. A man without vision is often inconsistent. One day he is passionate about his goals and the next he is unmotivated. One moment he speaks of building a future and the next he is unsure of what he wants. His instability will make you question yourself. His lack of clarity will make you second guess your own path. His inability to move forward will keep you stuck in a place you were never meant to settle in. You should do, you didn't should do. You will find yourself trying to make up for his shortcomings, trying to steer a relationship that was never meant to be built on your effort alone. The truth is, a man who is not actively pursuing his vision will eventually become resentful of a woman who is walking in hers. He will feel threatened by your growth. He will be intimidated by your progress. Instead of being inspired by your success, he will try to slow you down so that he does not have to feel left behind. A man without vision will either become dependent on you or try to control you. He will either expect you to carry him or expect you to shrink so that he does not have to rise to your level. You are not created to be someone's lifeline. You are not designed to spend your life pulling a man toward purpose when he should be running toward it on his own. A man who lacks vision will not only hold himself back, but he will also hold you back. His confusion will become your struggle. His passivity will become your frustration. And his unwillingness to grow will become the very thing that keeps you from stepping fully into what God has for you. You cannot afford to attach yourself to someone who has no clear direction, because when he does not know where he is going, you will always be lost trying to follow him. Manipulation is a silent thief. It does not show up loudly, announcing its intentions. It creeps in quietly, disguised as concern, wrapped in sweet words that slowly make you question yourself. A man who manipulates you is not a man who loves you. He is a man who seeks control. At first, he seems attentive, deeply interested in your thoughts, your emotions, and your decisions. He wants to know how you think, what you fear, and where your insecurities lie. But over time, the same knowledge he gained to understand you is what he will use to control you. He will take your vulnerabilities and twist them, making you feel like you cannot trust yourself, like you need him to guide you, like you are incapable of making the right decisions without him. He does not always manipulate with force. He manipulates with emotions, with silence, with guilt, with the withdrawal of affection. He will make you feel like you are the problem when he is the one shifting the foundation beneath you. He will say things that make you second guess yourself, question your own reality, and wonder if you are overreacting. You will start to shrink, to change, to adjust yourself just to keep the peace. But peace should not require you to lose yourself. A man who truly loves you does not play games with your mind. He does not twist the truth to keep you under his control. He does not make you feel small so he can feel powerful. At first, the manipulation will feel like love. He will tell you he just wants what is best for you. He will convince you that his jealousy is a sign of how much he cares. He will say that his constant criticism is just his way of helping you grow. But love does not make you feel like you are constantly walking on eggshells. Love does not require you to sacrifice your confidence, your voice, or your identity just to keep someone happy. A man who truly loves you will cover you, protect you, and uplift you, not make you doubt your own worth. Manipulative men know how to play the victim. When you catch them in a lie, they will find a way to turn it on you. When they hurt you, they will make you feel like you are the one who caused it. When you express how you feel, they will say you are too emotional, too sensitive, too difficult to love, and over time, you will begin to believe it. You will start to think that maybe you are the problem, that maybe if you just tried harder, loved better, or became smaller, things would get better, but they never do. Because a man who manipulates does not want resolution. He wants control. He will isolate you from the people who see through him. The friends who tell you he is not treating you right will suddenly become the enemies in his story. He will make you feel like they do not understand him, that they do not want to see you happy, that they are jealous of what you have together. And so little by little, you will pull away from the very people who could help you see clearly. He will make himself the center of your world, the only voice you trust, the only one who truly gets you. And once he has you in that place where your world revolves around him, where you no longer trust your own thoughts without his approval, he will have exactly what he wanted: power over you. Manipulation is dangerous because it does not feel like manipulation at first. It feels like passion. It feels like a deep connection. It feels like a man who wants you so badly that he cannot bear to lose you. But love does not imprison, it frees. Love does not demand control, it offers trust. Love does not make you question your worth, it affirms it. A manipulative man does not love you, he loves the power he has over you. He will make you responsible for his emotions. If he is angry, it is because of something you did. If he withdraws from you, it is because you did not love him the way he needed. If he cheats, it is because you were not giving him enough attention. He will place his shortcomings on your shoulders and make you feel like you are the one who needs to change in order to keep the relationship together. But a relationship should never feel like a constant battle to prove that you are enough. The right man will never require you to break yourself just to keep him whole. A manipulative man will convince you that without him you have nothing. He will make you feel like no one else will love you the way he does. Like leaving him means losing everything. But real love does not trap you in fear. Real love does not require you to choose between your happiness and his approval. Real love does not keep you questioning your worth, doubting your decisions, or living in a constant state of emotional exhaustion. Over time, the manipulation becomes your normal. You stop seeing it as unhealthy because you have adapted to it. You tell yourself that all relationships have struggles, that no man is perfect, that love requires sacrifice. And while love does require effort, it should never require the sacrifice of your self-worth. The right man will love you without conditions, without confusion, and without the need to control your every move. A man who makes you doubt your worth is not your covering, he is not your protector, he is not the man God has for you. A man who is not submitted to God cannot cover you. He may be charming, successful, and even appear to have good intentions, but if he is not rooted in God, he cannot lead you in the direction you were created to go. Spiritual misalignment is not something to overlook or downplay, because the foundation of any relationship determines its strength. When a man does not have a relationship with God, he is relying solely on his own understanding, his own emotions, and his own limited perspective. A man who does not seek God cannot guide you in purpose, cannot provide the spiritual leadership that a household requires, and cannot offer the covering that a woman of God needs. At first, it may not seem like an issue. He may respect your faith. He may even sit with you in church or listen when you talk about God. But there is a difference between a man who acknowledges God and a man who is submitted to him. A man who is truly submitted to God does not just believe in him. He follows him. He seeks wisdom in his decisions. He humbles himself before God's authority. He understands that his role as a man is not to control, but to cover. And that covering is only possible through submission. A man who is not submitted to God will always struggle to lead you in the right direction because he is being led by his own desires. He will make decisions based on what is convenient instead of what is right. He will move in ways that serve himself rather than what serves God's plan. His leadership will be unstable because it is built on human reasoning instead of divine guidance. And if he is unstable, your relationship will be unstable. If he does not know how to go to God for himself, he cannot pray for you, he cannot intercede for you, and he cannot provide the spiritual protection that love requires. A woman who is spiritually grounded cannot thrive with a man who is spiritually lost. You may think that your love will change him, that your prayers will transform him, that your patience will eventually push him toward God. But a man's relationship with God is his responsibility, not yours. You are not created to be his savior. You are not called to be his spiritual leader. A man who is meant to cover you should already be in a position of spiritual strength. He should already be walking in alignment with God before he tries to lead anyone else. When you align yourself with a man who is spiritually disconnected, you will find yourself constantly struggling to bridge the gap. You will want to pray, but he will see no need. You will want to seek God's will, but he will rely on his own plans. You will want to build a relationship that honors God, but he will want to do things his own way. And the deeper you go, the more you will feel the weight of carrying a relationship that was never supposed to be built on your strength alone. A man who is not submitted to God will have a different definition of love. Love to him may be based on emotions rather than commitment. It may be based on attraction rather than sacrifice. It may be rooted in personal gain rather than selflessness. But love, as God designed it, is patient, kind, and enduring. It is not self-seeking. It is not conditional. It is not based on convenience. A man who does not understand God's love cannot love you the way you deserve to be loved, because he is not drawing from the right source. When a man does not submit to God, he submits to something else. That might be his pride, his past, his pain, or his personal desires. And whatever controls him will eventually affect you. If he is ruled by anger, that anger will impact the relationship. If he is controlled by lust, that lust will create brokenness. If he is led by his ego, that pride will make him resistant to accountability. You cannot afford to be connected to a man who refuses to surrender his life to God, because a man who does not surrender to God will never fully understand how to love, honor, and cherish you. You will find yourself constantly explaining, constantly trying to convince, constantly trying to get him to see things from a spiritual perspective. But a man who does not want to grow spiritually will not change just because you love him. A relationship with God is a personal decision, and if he is not actively seeking that relationship on his own, no amount of effort on your part will make him desire it. A man who is not submitted to God cannot be trusted to lead a household. He may be able to provide financially, he may be strong in other ways, but a house without a spiritual foundation will not stand. Marriage is more than a romantic connection. It is a covenant. It requires sacrifice, wisdom, and guidance from God. A man who does not seek God's wisdom will make decisions that put you at risk. He will lead based on what he thinks is best rather than what God has instructed. And when life gets difficult, he will not have the spiritual strength to cover you in prayer, to stand firm in faith, or to navigate the storms with wisdom and trust in God's plan. The danger of spiritual misalignment is that it does not always look dangerous at first. He may treat you well, he may respect you, he may even support your faith from a distance. But over time, the misalignment will become clearer. You will feel the weight of leading spiritually when that was never your role. You will feel the exhaustion of trying to merge two different mindsets, two different value systems, two different sources of direction. And no matter how much you love him, love alone cannot fix what only God can change. A man who is submitted to God will not have to be forced to grow. He will seek growth on his own. He will not just go to church to please you. He will go because he desires to be in God's presence. He will not just pray when things go wrong. He will pray as a lifestyle. His relationship with God will be evident in his character, in his choices, in the way he treats you, and in the way he lives. His love will be rooted in something deeper than emotions. It will be rooted in faith. That kind of love is the only kind that lasts. Love was never designed to be one-sided. It was never meant to be carried by one person while the other stands on the sidelines, receiving without reciprocating. Love is a two-way exchange, giving, receiving, pouring, and being poured into. But when a man refuses to open up, when he shuts down instead of communicating, when he takes what you offer but never meets you halfway, then what you have is not love. It is an emotional burden that will leave you drained. A man who refuses to communicate will always leave you guessing. You will find yourself overanalyzing his words, trying to decode his silence, wondering if you did something wrong. He will make you feel like you are asking for too much simply because you desire clarity. But love does not leave you in confusion. Love does not force you to beg for honesty, for transparency, for the basic emotional connection that a healthy relationship requires. If a man cannot open up, if he cannot express his thoughts, if he withholds his emotions as a way to maintain control, then he is not ready for the kind of love you bring. At first it may seem like he is just guarded. Maybe he has been hurt before. Maybe he has walls up because of his past. Maybe he just needs time. And so you wait. You give him patience, understanding, and space. You hope that if you love him enough, he will eventually feel safe enough to let you in. But love is not about waiting indefinitely for someone to decide if they want to let you in. Love is about mutual effort. And when one person is doing all the work, initiating every conversation, making every compromise, and carrying the weight of emotional connection alone, it is no longer a partnership. It is an emotional imbalance that will leave you exhausted. A man who refuses to communicate is not protecting himself. He is avoiding intimacy. He is keeping you at a distance because he does not want to be vulnerable. He does not want to be held accountable. He does not want to share the depth of his emotions because that will require effort, honesty, and self-awareness. And a man who is not willing to be emotionally available is a man who will always leave you feeling unseen, unheard, and undervalued. Love cannot grow in silence. It cannot thrive in an environment where one person is expressing while the other remains closed off. A relationship built on one-sided effort will always feel like a struggle. You will find yourself constantly trying to reach him, trying to pull emotions out of him, trying to make sense of what he refuses to say. But love should not be a guessing game. You should not have to decode his feelings or read between the lines to understand where you stand. The right man will not make you feel like you have to pry his heart open just to be let in. A man who cannot communicate his feelings will struggle to handle conflict in a healthy way. When problems arise, he will shut down instead of addressing them. He will withdraw instead of working through issues. He will make you feel like you are the problem simply because you want to talk about what's wrong. His silence will become a weapon used to punish you when things don't go his way. And the more you tolerate it, the more you will find yourself walking on eggshells, afraid to express yourself because you know it will only push him further away. Real love does not require you to shrink yourself. It does not require you to suppress your needs just to keep the other person comfortable. If he cannot handle communication, if he refuses to meet you in emotional openness, if he expects you to carry the weight of the relationship without ever lifting a finger, then he is not ready for the love you bring. A man who truly values you will want to hear your thoughts. He will want to understand your emotions. He will not make you feel like your feelings are a burden. He will not make you feel like you have to fight for his attention or beg for his presence. Love is not just about being in the same space. It is about connection, about two people coming together and being intentional about how they love each other. A relationship where one person is emotionally unavailable is not a relationship. It is a cycle of disappointment. You cannot build something strong with a man who refuses to be present in the relationship. You cannot pour into someone who does not pour into you. You cannot be the only one initiating conversations, apologizing first and trying to fix things while he sits back and gives you nothing in return. That is not love. That is emotional labor disguised as a relationship. Love requires effort. It requires intentionality. It requires a willingness to communicate, to express, to grow together. A man who is not willing to do those things is not a man who is ready to love. And the longer you hold on to someone who is emotionally unavailable, the more you will lose pieces of yourself trying to make the relationship work. You deserve a love that is given freely, not one you have to chase. You deserve a relationship where you feel heard, valued, and understood. You deserve a partner who meets you halfway, who makes an effort, who communicates openly, who does not leave you questioning where you stand. If a man cannot offer that, then he is not the one God has for you. A love that is one-sided will always leave you empty. But the right love, the love that is whole, mutual, and rooted in real connection, will never require you to carry the relationship alone. A woman's light is meant to shine. It is meant to radiate, to inspire, to grow, and to impact the world in the way God intended. But when a man sees your light as a threat instead of a blessing, when he tries to dim it instead of celebrate it, when he competes with your growth instead of supporting it, he becomes a cage rather than a covering. A man who cannot handle your strength, your success, your calling, or your confidence is not a man who is ready to love you. At first, his control may not seem obvious. It may come disguised as concern, as protection, as wanting what's best for you. He may say things like, I just want to make sure you're not taking on too much. Or maybe you should focus on other things instead of chasing that dream. It may sound like love, but in reality, it is fear. It is insecurity wrapped in gentle words. A quiet attempt to keep you in a space where your growth does not make him uncomfortable. A man who is secure in himself will never be intimidated by the woman he loves. He will see her light and want it to shine even brighter. Not because he benefits from it, but because he understands that her greatness is not a threat. It is a gift. A man who competes with you will always try to make you smaller. He will dismiss your accomplishments, subtly downplay your success, or shift the focus back to himself when you share something you are excited about. He may not say it outright, but his actions will show you that your success unsettles him. He will try to keep you in a place where he feels bigger, where he feels like the one in control, where he does not have to confront his own insecurities. But love does not shrink you. Love does not make you feel guilty for growing. Love does not turn your victories into competition. You may try to make yourself smaller to make the relationship work. You may downplay your achievements, dim your personality, or hold back on opportunities just to keep the peace. You may tell yourself that if you stay quiet, if you don't shine too brightly, if you don't make him feel inadequate, then things will be okay. But the right relationship does not require you to shrink. The right love does not ask you to choose between your purpose and your partner. A man who truly loves you will never feel the need to compete with you because he will know that love is about partnership, not rivalry. A man who tries to control your light will do so in many ways. Sometimes it is through jealousy, making you feel guilty for your success instead of celebrating it. Sometimes it is through discouragement, planting seeds of doubt when you step into something new. Sometimes it is through emotional withdrawal, pulling away whenever you accomplish something great so that you associate your success with loneliness. Control does not always come in the form of harsh words or obvious demands. Sometimes it comes in silence, in subtle dismissals, in the quiet expectation that you should not outgrow the space he is comfortable with. A relationship should be a place of growth, not restriction. It should push you forward, not hold you back. A man who loves you will see your light and do everything he can to nurture it. He will pray over your gifts. He will remind you of your worth. He will challenge you to step fully into your purpose, even when it means he has to adjust to your growth. He will not feel the need to compete with you because he understands that your win is not his loss. When two people truly love each other, their success is shared. There is no competition in love, only mutual elevation. A man who tries to control your light is afraid of what your growth might mean for him. He fears that if you step fully into your power, you will realize that you do not need him as much as he needs you. He fears that your confidence will expose his insecurities. He fears that your success will make him feel small. And instead of dealing with those fears, instead of doing the internal work to become the kind of man who can stand beside a strong woman, he will try to contain you. But love is not a cage. Love does not limit. Love does not suppress. A man who truly loves you will never be intimidated by the fullness of who you are. You cannot afford to be with the man who sees your strength as a problem. You cannot spend your life making yourself smaller to protect his ego. You cannot live in the shadow of someone who does not have the capacity to support your growth. Because if you do, you will wake up one day and realize that you have lost yourself in the process of keeping the relationship alive. You will realize that the dreams God placed in you have been left unattended. That the fire in you has been reduced to a flicker. That you have been existing instead of thriving. And that is not the life you were created for. You deserve a man who celebrates you. A man who is proud of the way you shine, who speaks life into your purpose, who pushes you to be everything God created you to be. A man who stands beside you, not in competition, but in partnership. A man who does not need to feel bigger than you in order to feel secure. A man who understands that your growth does not take anything away from him, but instead, it adds value to everything you are building together. A man who competes with your growth is not a man who will love you fully. He is a man who will always make you question yourself. A man who will try to contain what was meant to be limitless. A man who will never allow you to become the woman you were destined to be. And the longer you stay, the more you will realize that true love does not require you to shrink. It requires you to stand in the fullness of who you are, alongside someone who has the strength to do the same. A broken man is not yours to fix. His healing is his responsibility, not yours. Too many women have been taught that love means saving, that patience means enduring, that commitment means carrying the weight of a man's unhealed wounds on their back. But you were never called to be his therapist, his mother, or his savior. You can love him, you can support him, you can pray for him, but you cannot heal him. That is work he must be willing to do for himself. A man who refuses to heal will only bring his brokenness into the relationship. And if you are not careful, that brokenness will become yours to bear. His past wounds, his insecurities, his unresolved trauma will spill over into how he treats you. One moment he may be loving, the next he may be distant. One day he may make you feel like you are everything, and the next he may make you feel like you are nothing. And because you love him, you will try to understand. You will try to be patient. You will tell yourself that if you just love him enough, if you just show him that you are not like the people who hurt him before, then maybe, just maybe, he will finally heal. But healing does not come from external love alone. Healing requires self-awareness. It requires accountability. It requires him to recognize that his pain is his own to work through, not yours to absorb. If he refuses to take that responsibility, if he chooses to remain in his brokenness, then no amount of love will change him. You will find yourself exhausted, pouring into him while he drains you, holding on to a relationship that is built on the hope that one day he will become the man you believe he can be. But a relationship should not be built on potential, should be built on reality. A man who refuses to heal will hurt you, not always intentionally, but inevitably. He will see love as something to fear, not something to embrace. He will push you away when you get too close, sabotage the relationship when things start to feel good, and lash out at you for things that have nothing to do with you. He will blame you for things that stem from his own unresolved pain. He will expect you to carry his burdens, to soothe his insecurities, to be patient with his inconsistency. And because you care, you will try. You will take on the weight of his wounds, thinking that your love is strong enough to make him whole. But healing is an inside job. No one can do it for him. And the longer you stay in a situation where you are expected to fix a man who refuses to heal, the more you will start to lose yourself. You will start to believe that love is supposed to be hard, that relationships are supposed to feel heavy, that your worth is tied to how much you can endure. But love should not be built on suffering. You were not placed on this earth to be someone's emotional crutch. A relationship is meant to be a partnership, not a rescue mission. A healed man will love you from a place of wholeness, not dependency. He will not need you to complete him, because he will have already done the work to be complete within himself. He will not use you as a bandage for his wounds, but rather he will come into the relationship ready to love you fully, without the weight of his past dictating how he treats you. A healed man will communicate instead of shutting down, love instead of pushing away, take accountability instead of blaming you. He will not expect you to fix him, because he understands that his healing is his responsibility, not yours. A dangerous man is not just one who is physically harmful, he is also the one who refuses to confront his own demons and instead expects you to carry them. He is the man who refuses to take responsibility for his actions, who blames his past for the way he treats you, who uses his pain as an excuse for why he cannot love you properly. And the truth is, you cannot build a healthy relationship with someone who is at war with himself. A man who refuses to heal will never be able to fully love you, no matter how much he wants to. He may try, but his pain will always find a way to creep in. His trust issues will turn into accusations. His fear of abandonment will turn into emotional distance. His insecurities will turn into control. And no matter how much you pour into him, he will never be able to receive your love the way you deserve. You deserve a love that does not require you to break yourself just to keep the relationship alive. You deserve a partner, not a project. You deserve a man who's done the work, who's faced his past, who's taken responsibility for his healing, so that he can love you without making you pay the price for what he has been through. The right man will not see you as his savior. He will see you as his equal. He will come to you whole, ready to love, without expecting you to heal wounds that you did not create. He will take responsibility for his emotions, for his actions, for his past. He will not make excuses. He will not place the weight of his healing on your shoulders. He will not ask you to prove your love by tolerating his brokenness. A man who refuses to heal is a man who will always love you in fragments. He will always hold parts of himself back. He will always make you feel like you are fighting for a love that should come freely. And the longer you stay, the more you will realize that loving someone who refuses to heal is like trying to fill a cup with holes in it will never be enough. Healing is his responsibility, not yours. And if he's not willing to do the work, then you must be willing to walk away. Because the love you deserve will never require you to fix what someone else is not willing to repair within themselves. Sis, listen to me. You are too valuable to settle for less than what God has for you. The enemy loves to send distractions dressed as desires, but you must discern the difference between a lesson and a life partner. A real man of God will not play with your heart, confuse your mind, or delay your destiny. You don't need to beg for love, prove your worth, or accept treatment that doesn't honor who you are. So today, I challenge you. Walk away from anything that drains you, dishonors you, or delays you. Trust that what God has for you will never require you to compromise your peace. Your love is a gift, sis. Make sure the one who receives it is worthy.